Hello and welcome to Cinemania. It is Friday, May 5th. I had to think about that for a second, but I was reminded because it is May 5th and yesterday was May 4th, which is officially Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Carrie Fisher finally got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so that's wonderful and that's great. And also I was watching Star Wars A New Hope last night because it's a classic, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, and it's great. So, they're all streaming. Although I was wondering, does anyone know, I didn't watch the whole thing last night because I was watching it as I was falling asleep, and the Disney Star... my brain, it hurts. The Star Wars that is streaming on Disney Plus, which hurts my soul a little bit, but they do have the chronological order of everything, so that's pretty cool. Are they the remastered versions? Because they look like the remastered versions. I would assume they are, like the 1997. I remember seeing Star Wars in the theater in 97 when they did the George Lucas remaster, which also the South Park making fun of all that is very, very funny. So that's hilarious, especially talking about E.T. and how Spielberg, recently was like, I should have never edited out the guns. Unless it's like a Ridley Scott Blade Runner situation, I feel like my general preference is like, don't go back and fix them. But I also love a director's cut to see what they want to do, and there are lots of really interesting ones, and, Alien, or I'm just gonna reference Ridley Scott films, apparently. But so over the last couple of days, I watched really only two films, which is the amazing classic The Wicker Man, which is one of my all-time favorites. And then I also watched Harper, which I had never seen before. And Harper was, I knew about it because of reading Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman, who's one of my heroes. Huge recommendation that you watch Magic if you've never seen it, which is bonkers. He wrote the book and also the screenplay, and it has Anthony Hopkins and Anne Margaret. Anne Margaret is one of my all-time favorites, and her performance in Tommy is one of my favorite performances of all time. I'm just gonna ramble around here because it's Friday and the weekend's coming, and this is where we are. But Harper is, a sexy, sexy Paul Newman. Private Eye kind of reminded me of a mix of Night Moves and Chinatown. Although, what an ending. I don't even know what to say about that. But it's a little more subdued than either of those films. It's not bombastic. The most bombastic thing I would say is either Paul Newman's kind of smirky, jokey self, which is delightful. He's delightful in just having a hammy old comedy time, and every little expression of him. It's just fun to see, he's always having fun, but it's very fun, Paul Newman. And it has a wild cast. Shelley Winters is bonkers. Robert Wagner is just dripping sex. Julie Harris, Lauren Bacall in one of the strangest second billings I've ever seen, because she's in it for about 2 seconds, and is important to the plot, but I can't even say. Janet Leigh is in it, and Janet Leigh and Paul Newman have the best scenes, I think, in the film, other than the ones that he has with his friend Albert. But it just has a wild cast, and it is currently streaming on HBO Max, soon to be Max, whatever. Don't hunt me down, HBO. Or Max, whatever you are. Okay, I am rambling. So, Harper. Recommend if you're a fan of, Night Moves, Chinatown, Paul Newman, all those amazing actresses, or William Goldman, because I think it's, I had heard a lot about it and read a lot about the making of it long before I'd seen it, but streaming, it's great. I would give it 4 out of 5 Shelley Winters drinking and eating. So that's what I'd give that. And then The Wicker Man, one of my all-time favorites. I have a physical copy of it. Also, I have a thing for Edward Woodward, who is very, very sexy. And one of my friends sent me a video today from a film called The Appointment that I've never heard of, which is a British horror film, which just looks wild, and he's the star. So I'm excited to get some more Edward Woodward in my life. He, you know, plays a cop who goes to an island looking for a missing girl, and finds more than he bargained for. Britt Eklund is in it. I forgot that Ingrid Pitt was in it, even though Ingrid Pitt is totally listed like third in the credits. But when she showed up in the film, I was like, oh yeah, she's in this. She's great in Countess Dracula, if you've never seen it. I have to wrap this up. And then, of course, Christopher Lee in just the wildest outfits. But if you're a fan of folk horror, this is the ultimate folk horror, and rewatching it, you know, you can just see why Midsommar was so influenced by it. And also, Britt Eklund's dance sequence, her naked dance sequence against the wall as the kind of seduction of the really tight-laced cop. Maybe one of the sexiest things I've seen in a long time, just gonna say it. It's just a bonkers film about Christianity versus paganism too, which is fascinating and has one of the all-time famous disturbing endings. I remember watching it when I was young and going, oh, okay. And then when it gets to the ending, you're like, ooh. A lot of fun. I'd give it 5 out of 5 hand candles. And then if I'm going to recommend anything, I, of course, have to recommend Postcards from the Edge, if you've never seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a long time. It's fantastic. Meryl Streep, Shirley MacLaine, not McQueen. I was seeing Dennis Quaid while I was reading that. And it's a Mike Nichols film, and of course, was written by Carrie Fisher. I also highly recommend the book. Huge fan of Carrie Fisher, the best. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. Have a great weekend.